We are a couple of months away from Black Friday, from the peak season. E-commerce is about to get seriously busy. And so today, with the help of Heather from Metapack and Zaeem from Descartes E-Commerce division, we're going to try and understand what e-commerce merchants and online retailers can be doing now to get ahead of the game and be as best prepared as possible for the season. So thanks very much, both of you guys, for coming. Maybe Heather, can you start with a quick introduction to yourself and what Metapack is as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I'm Heather Boyd, and I lead global marketing at Metapack. And if you're, not familiar with what Metapack does, we offer delivery management solutions that help connect e-commerce retailers with the largest global carrier network. So we offer over 400 carriers, nearly 5,000 distinct delivery services, all really designed to help retailers and brands get their products to their online consumers in the best, most efficient way possible. And in addition to delivery management, we also offer everything from dynamic delivery options, transparent parcel tracking, and simple returns and exchange processes.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you. Well, thanks for coming. And Zaeem, same question for you. Can you tell the people who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for arranging this, and super excited to talk to everyone. So I'm Zaeem Batavia. I look after our e-comm division here at Descartes, both new business and our existing customers. For those who are not familiar with us, so we have a couple of solutions in our e-commerce division. The ones that are relevant for today's discussions is our EWMS solution, which ultimately, in a nutshell, allows online merchants to provide a world-class and excellent customer experience to their customers. And we improve people's fulfillment models with our warehouse management solution.
There you have it. Thanks very much. So Heather, I guess the first question for you, it'd be great to understand in your kind of customer base, Metapack users, what are the kind of things they are doing now, or the kind of work they're putting in now, in order to be, ahead of the game and ready for that crazy sort of high order volume season that's just around the corner.
Yeah, the holiday peak period is always an exciting time for retail, right? But it can also be a very unpredictable time, especially when you think about what's been happening the past couple of years. You think about, the pandemic, Brexit, everything else that's influencing retail. So this year specifically is probably more unpredictable than ever. But there's a few things that our customers are already doing to prepare, and a few trends that we're seeing. The first is carrier contingency planning. So we see things right now like driver shortages or general carrier capacity limits. We're also seeing peak surcharges that carriers are implementing, and these are going to impact retailers' delivery plans. So retailers who may only have one or two carriers and very limited delivery services, they're going to have problems. And when that peak volume pressure combines with the uncertainty, the contingency planning and ensuring you have a strong carrier network is going to be imperative. So our most prepared retailers are making sure they have access to that full suite of carriers that span a variety of delivery services, to make sure they can really safeguard that delivery proposition in case their usual network, their go-tos, become overloaded or inefficient. So that's one big thing they're focusing on. Another that we see growing is offering more out-of-home delivery options. During the checkout process. So things like the pickup and drop off locations, PUDOs, or locker boxes, for instance. During the pandemic, failed or missed deliveries were at an all-time low. Everyone was always at home to accept their delivery, right? And now with more people returning to work or starting to spend more time outside of the home, those failed delivery attempts are going to start to creep back up, especially during the peak season. So giving customers an option to collect outside of the home, it not only provides, convenience for them, but it's less missed deliveries for the retailer, which reduces the strain on the already overloaded carrier network. So that's going to be really important.
Yeah.
And the last thing we're seeing is, which I think is really important, is how retailers are getting their physical stores to work harder for them. Because we're seeing all over the place. Every day I read about another retailer that's closing more physical locations, if not all of their physical locations. So the ones who have decided to keep their physical shops, I think they really need to reassess how they can add more value from those physical locations. So things like ship from store have become really critical to our most prepared retailers. So if a customer does leave their holiday shopping to the last minute, things like ship from store can help them not only get their order faster, but the retailer can use that store as a pseudo warehouse.
Yeah.
And then, options like click and collect or collection points really help draw those consumers back into the physical stores. So not only bringing forward the delivery timeframes for those last minute shoppers, but increasing the foot traffic into the stores, ultimately just making those stores, add more value.
Yeah, and there's a lot more sort of touch points and customer experience that you can have if you're actually visiting a store compared to online. So it sort of reestablishes that physical relationship between customers and the shops that they used to go to all the time, I guess.
That's right. And it's reestablishing that trend for consumers to get back into the stores and taking that more omni-channel approach to how you engage with your consumer, not only online, but as well as rebuilding that relationship in the store.
Yeah. Cool. Super interesting. Thanks very much. Zaeem, I guess it's a similar question for you, but maybe where our solutions work are sort of a step before that, last mile and delivery and collection areas. In terms of our customer base and, especially over the last 18 months, what have you seen as the biggest trends or the biggest changes? And then how do you expect those to sort of manifest at this busy time that's coming up?
Yeah, great question. I mean, what's happened in the last 18 months in our e-comm base? A lot. Significant change. I think we could talk extensively about what's happened in the market in general, but I think the clear and obvious one is that major pivot where people who had an e-commerce arm and a wholesale and or a retail arm, they've seen major growth opportunity in e-comm. And not only during the pandemic, it's just continued significantly. So the amount of our existing customers that may have had a split of order profiles from e-commerce and wholesale and distribution have realized that the real growth area and the real area that they need to focus on transforming their business is e-comm, and we're continuing to see that in the discussions that we're having. And I think on that note as well, what we've also seen, apart from the pivot, is the pivot away from 3PL fulfillment as a model as well. So a lot of customers originally, especially in the e-comm space, would have said, hey, like fulfillment, pick and pack, this isn't an area of our expertise, we'll outsource that. There's nothing wrong with that from a logistical perspective, but what they realized is that the major important piece of outsourcing is the loss of control, or the perceived loss of control. And I think one thing that we've seen in the last 18 months are brands and ultimately merchants wanting to wrestle back that control and deliver on their own customer promises. And I think primarily if we were to deep dive in that, and we have, it's because a lot of systems still out there on the market are legacy based. So a lot of 3PLs will have a traditional B2B warehouse where pallets are getting received and dispatched out to wholesalers and retailers, and e-commerce is just completely different. So, and we've seen that across our user base. A lot of people have brought back fulfillment in-house and have then needed a system and assistance to get that live. And I think that's going to continue. I think we're going to see a big surge where people are going to take that back in control and are going to really see the value as fulfillment as a differentiator in the market. I think the other thing, when we've spoken about it, Leo, as well, is that as people have pivoted to e-comm, they've realized that letting a customer down in e-comm is totally different than letting a customer down in retail and wholesale. And we had a discussion with a prospective customer last week who now is a customer and is rolling out the platform across their business, and they made the comment of, like, beforehand, if we let a customer down, we'd raise a credit note, where it's a business transaction built on relationships. It was a call from the account manager to the customer to say, hey, sorry, we've sent you a pallet of pink ladies size 10 t-shirts when actually you wanted a mixed palette of various different SKUs. In e-com, that just It just doesn't happen. If you send the wrong product in the wrong quantity to the wrong person at the wrong time, it's usually disastrous. I think people are realizing what ultimately that means. And I think where do we see the trend continuing? I think Black Friday and Cyber Monday and peak coming up, I think we'll see longer promotions. I think it's going to be more of a season rather than what was historically just a weekend. And I think expect a wider demographic of people buying online this year. Like, I think what Thanksgiving perhaps taught us was typically it was the 18-year-olds up to the 40-year-olds that were buying online, and people were really kind of zoned into that demographic of age. And I think as this continues, you're going to find people in their 60s and 70s and somewhat 80s on a smartphone or an iPad or a device buying product direct to and expecting it direct to consumer, and they're going to expect that product arriving the next day. And I think Thanksgiving really taught us that if your web store isn't optimized for a really great mobile experience, that's going to be something that's going to cause a lot of problems for your brand. So definitely we feel that that's going to be a major issue. And I think what else could we say from being very close to our market is innovation. I think if you're a merchant right now and you're preparing for Black Friday, which I know everybody ultimately is, it's innovate. I think if you're not having innovation in your thoughts right now, you are going to be left behind. If you look at what's going on in the Far East at the moment with China, you've got people that are actually targeting people on socials with a buy it now button. So just really being a lot more clever and thinking outside the box. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see ultimately in the short term.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So one of the things that I think both of our businesses or the partnership that we've formed is focused on is scalability and understanding that this period, and the higher volumes create so much more demand on technology and on the businesses as a whole. So Heather, it'd be interesting to hear a bit about what sort of Metapack as a system has that makes it sort of come into its own at this time, and how the product and the platform can support those customers through the through the peak period.
Yeah, and I really like what Zaeem was saying about, you have to get it right with this e-com business now more than ever. And that's why, when we think about peak, it's nothing new. We've always seen this holiday surge during this season. And so this is why, Metapack has really focused and taken pride in the fact that it maintains, high reliability, agility, and speed of its platform. Because when you have these increased volumes, especially combined with that uncertainty, these are going to be the features that are going to drive the necessary outcomes. These are the critical features, really. So, increased volumes and uncertainty really need to focus on, again, reliability, agility, and speed. So, making sure that the platform that you're working with can handle that additional load and consistently deliver. So Metapack, it's really important to us that we always maintain 99.99% uptime. Working with Metapack, it's never going to fail you, especially during that peak season. We've proven time and time again that we can handle those volumes. And then, agility. So the ability to adapt quickly, especially when you're not really sure what's coming and volumes are going to shift, and being able to flip that digital switch and allow for additional carriers or technical integrations to make sure that you're driving the most efficient end-to-end shipping management solution. So things like, partner integrations, like the one that PeopleVox has with Metapacks, is a great example of this. So it really eliminates the need for, manual integrations or toggling between different software, and allows you to process and scale orders through the supply chain, all right there at your fingertips. So that agility that can drive efficiency is really valuable during this time. And lastly, speed. When volumes increase, the time it takes to process and ship orders is critical, right? Anywhere you can save time, it's going to add value. So, being able to generate labels with Metapack in less than 300 milliseconds. What does that mean? That sounds, that's a number, right? But it's 2 to 3 times faster than other delivery management software. So when your volumes do increase and time is of the essence just to get these out the door, you want that partner that can deliver things reliably, allow you to move and shift, and give you the speed that you need.
Yeah. Now our audience, I know they're sticklers for numbers and data, and they love to sort of hear some of these success stories about how many orders a company shipped, or how many, pounds or dollars in revenue a customer was able to do, like within the first hour, for example. I don't know if you don't need to name any names or if you have any specific examples, but it'd be great to understand the kind of, that the scale of orders per day or the volume that Metapack customers at that, the higher end might be looking at doing this time around.
Yeah, I can't share specific numbers, but when you think about the year-over-year trends that we're seeing in 2020, last year, the peak season, we saw at Metapack a 20% increase in those peak volumes. And this year, we're predicting that that's going to be an additional 11 to 12% increase. So the growth in e-comm is just phenomenal. And that ability to adapt with those increased volumes at the drop of a hat is going to be critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zaeem, in terms of, within the four walls of the warehouse, I guess, we're talking about software, but we're also talking about a very practical idea of picking up items off shelves and putting them in packages and trying to walk as fast as possible, all these things. What are we doing kind of behind the scenes to support our customers, not just with the software using and the technology stack they have, but actually in terms of tactical help or physical solutions to handle these quite manual, labor intense days and weeks that are coming up?
Sure. I mean, it's a good question, and it's highly relevant. As the world of cloud-based software just continues to grow just significantly, I think people are now becoming even more wary of just buying software off the shelf and not talking to people. So I think with our organization and our division specifically, we have a client success team that look after all of our customers once they're live. And so what does that really mean in practicality? So throughout the whole season, off peak as well, what our client success team are doing are talking to customers. They're visiting customers to understand what their operations are like. Are they utilizing best practice in our platform? What areas could we actually improve based on how we know their business is changing? And that could be through new SKUs, new route to market, new order channels, a new ERP integration, for example. That means that we can be a little bit more efficient in the way they pick, pack, ship. So the team all year been putting in some really good hours, getting closer to customers' operations and understanding how customer operations look, and then making best practice improvements and suggestions on, as Leah mentioned, like it could be the physical layout of the warehouse. We did that recently with a customer. We recommended that actually, because they're a big portion of their business is fast fashion. We recommended that they should have some returns racking, because a lot of the products that come back in, and we're talking thousands and thousands of return items every single day, like actually instead of putting that back into the locations and wasting time and actually revisiting where they originally were picked from, just put them back into into a returns racking at a return station, so that we can pick and pack and dispatch that a lot quicker. So not only have we been doing that, but our team are completely ready, and Leo will attest and be clear about this, is that the team are getting ready to really help with the customers that we've onboarded onto the platform in recent times, but also our existing customers that have been with us for a significant period of time. Same goes for our support team and our delivery team. We're all gearing up for the ever increasing nature and dynamic of what really is ahead of us.
Awesome. I guess the last question I have for both of you, and I really don't mean to fearmonger or scaremonger, but I think it is worth just even at a high level discussing kind of what the pitfalls are, where things can go wrong, and if people aren't getting ahead of the game, as we're hoping to try and assist them with today, what can be the biggest negative impacts of a bad shipping and fulfillment experience or an underprepared logistics operation come Black Friday and peak?
Yeah, so I can go first. I mentioned already just the growth and the volume increases that we expect, and that's great, right? It's great for e-commerce, but with that growth, comes serious risk, because as more customers migrate to online shopping, there's a massive uptick in customers who are having a bad delivery experience. And we saw in our research that we conducted earlier this year that 81% of consumers had a bad delivery experience in 2020. which was a 5-fold increase over the previous year. And more scary than that, more than a third wouldn't return to a retailer after a bad delivery experience. So I think where consumers were maybe more understanding of shortages and delays at the beginning of the pandemic, at this point, poor performance will almost certainly result in customer churn. So I think retailers need to be aware of that and to prepare for it. Many of the ones who are getting it right are taking a stronger focus on that delivery experience. So not just the checkout experience and trying to drive e-com conversions, but focusing on what happens after the buy button. So things like ensuring transparency and accuracy around parcel tracking, offering that simple returns experience. I think ultimately retailers are paying a lot to acquire these online consumers. And as that opportunity continues to grow, it's really important that they focus on retention and loyalty. And the complete delivery experience has been a proven way to do this. So I think that's what they need to do, because if they don't, they could lose a lot of consumers this peak period.
Yeah, first time or more first time shoppers than ever before, and it's therefore more opportunities to make either a great impression or a terrible impression. Zaeem, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to round us off here today.
I think, like, for sure, we could talk about this topic, and ultimately we talk about this topic every day with prospective customers, because they're often coming to us to say, this is what's happened and these are the problems. And I think the main takeaway point is that if you get this wrong or you don't do this properly, somebody else is going to provide that exceptional customer service to your prospective customer. And I think as e-commerce continues to grow, which is a given, it's going to happen, I think you can't just acquire new customers. A lot of brands and a lot of merchants haven't provided exceptional customer service. Their Trustpilot reviews have gone significantly down, and they've been getting more negative reviews, but they've just been able to find and acquire new customers through paid social or whatever through mechanism. That's going to become harder and harder as time goes on. I think it's going to become even more competitive. The cost of acquiring customers is going to go through the roof in 2022. So I think the best way possible to build that sustainable online presence is to look after your existing customers, drive loyalty through existing customers, get your customers shouting about how good and exceptional the service is, and acquire new customers through that loyalty from your existing base. And it's a much more, I mean, look at any successful business, repeat business is a great indicator of how healthy that business is. And just churning customers all the time ultimately isn't going to help. And I think that also, just rounding it off, doesn't take into consideration the morale issues and the high turnover of staff that you may experience in your fulfillment center. I mean, if your fulfillment center is playing catch up for a week or 2 weeks on customer orders, and you're having major problems in overtime, and people aren't going home to see their families and are in the fulfillment center on the weekend in the warehouse, etc., it's just going to catch up with you ultimately as a brand. And fulfillment will be the key differentiator as time goes on, and we firmly and truly believe that. And ultimately, you don't want to be that merchant or that brand in your sector that becomes that story of people getting it so wrong around Black Friday. And I think these are all, I mean, they all might sound crazy, but these are all viable issues and challenges that ultimately could face your brand if you don't get this wrong. And I think, just rounding it up seriously now, just truly rounding it off, because I know we're conscious of time, like, bad word just gets around so much more quicker than good words does. I mean, recently I bought some shoes off a website. Like, all the challenges and problems with bad fulfillment I experienced, I didn't have any visibility when it was coming. I paid for next day delivery. A week later, I hadn't heard from them. Got an email saying it's been delivered. The tracking number was incorrect. I tried calling them up. They were experiencing high volume of calls. And I've told this story to about 20 people. Like, genuinely, I've told the story about 20 people. Like, I ordered a pair of shoes for a really key event, didn't get them, was super let down, like, horrible customer service, horrible customer experience, told everybody about it, never buying again from that company. And, like, these are the things that ultimately brands and merchants, these are true life stories that they're just going to have to experience. So I think that's the key takeaway from today.
Brilliant. Zaeem, thanks very much for your insights. I think we've summed it up really well there, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks both.
Thanks, guys.